Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Not.
Hey everyone, welcome to Big Blend Radio. Every fourth Saturday, we get to chat with Glynn Burrows over in England. Glynn is a family history expert. He's a tour guide and owner of Norfolk Tours in England. And one of the cool things he does is, number one, you can customize your tour. So that's always, if you go to England and you want to go to Stonehenge, and then you want to go to a pub, and then you want to go maybe to the Shakespeare's original theater, or, you know, all those kinds of things, he will help you put it together. But one thing he really specializes in is taking people out to connect with their ancestry, with their family history, and even helps them with it. So we said to Glynn, hey, you know what? 4th of July is coming up. Maybe we should do something on the famous five, you know, the five dudes who drafted the Declaration of Independence. Yeah, Adams, Livingston, Sherman, Jefferson, and Franklin. Ben Franklin, you know, I love Ben Franklin. So Glynn went down a rabbit hole. So welcome back to the show, Glynn. How are you? And
Yeah,
you went down a rabbit hole, and your article has nothing to do with what we were supposed to talk about. But it's okay, because this is a true thing that people go down a rabbit hole when they do family history.
Oh, that's
research,
what
right?
research is about.
especially if your name is Burrows.
Oh, yeah. Oh, with a W or a O-U-G-H?
No,
You know.
I thought you knew that the word for a rabbit hole is a burrow.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. Duh.
You see?
That's
They're
right.
burrowing in
Well-
for the winter.
Well, you know, one of our famous naturalists, well, not that famous, but famous and back in the day here in this country, is John Burrows.
All
And
right.
it's Burroughs. So that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So
It
he's going to
depends-
be,
depends how you
oh,
spell it.
he might be in your family. Did somebody
He
just
could
chop
be.
it off and change it? I mean, do you
Well,
think your
right.
family was a big Burrows with the big long word?
It depends who wrote it down,
Oh,
because nobody could read and write apart from the people who were in charge. So you go to the vicar and you tell him what your name is, and he writes down whatever he wants to write down. You can't tell him how you spell it because you don't
Well,
know.
Because you
So-
don't know.
and maybe he only
Oh.
had a little short piece of paper.
Wow.
He said, I'm
I've
running
never-
out to the next line. That's it. Your
Yeah.
Burrows with a W
Isn't
instead
it-
of Boughs.
But
Yeah.
isn't it weird to think that you don't know how to spell your own name?
Well, no, nobody do. It was
Yeah.
just
Yeah, back in the
then.
day.
everybody
Isn't
was
that weird?
illiterate. You know, apart
Yeah.
from the people who were in charge, 99% of the population were illiterate. 99% of my ancestors, when they got married and they had to sign the register, they signed with a cross because they couldn't sign
Yeah,
their own.
the X. Yeah.
Yeah.
They put the
Oh, wow.
X on this.
So that makes it hard for family history.
It can do, it can. But it's quite surprising if you say a word out loud, even if it's spelt in a different way, you can still see what it is because it's what the person heard. So I remember seeing one of my ancestors who was a Burrows, and you've just heard how I said it. She was a Burrows. Right.
Burrows. Yeah.
It was
Mhm.
written down in the register, Buris, because that's what the vicar heard.
Oh,
Burrows.
that's funny.
Wow.
It's the same thing. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing when you're transcribing records, when you're looking at census returns, when you're looking at parish registers. So place names are the same.
Mm.
People wrote down what they heard. So if someone came from Dereham, for instance, which is my local town, and you went to London and they said, where are you from? You say, I'm from Dereham. They might spell it Derum because that's
Oh.
what they hear. Actually, it's spelled
Mhm.
Dereham. That's how you spell
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
But you write down what you hear.
Okay. So
Okay.
so when we start going to the founding fathers, this famous five,
Yeah.
you went on a chase, because it seems like I wonder about this, because, you know, when people start doing their family history, if it gets too crazy, the rabbit hole gets too crazy, they may drop it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
This is something
Oh, definitely.
When I was reading your article, I thought, I know that you get into the rabbit holes, the Burrows, but
Of course.
I know people that are really busy with, raising kids or something. And I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
saying you're not busy. I know you're real busy, but that's your thing. And
yeah,
they're trying to do it. If you start running into roadblocks of things not being verified, and that's what it sounded like you were going into,
yes,
that. And I've done that too. And then you kind of go, okay, I'll look at it another day, and then you don't. And
yes.
that's kind of
I mean,
sad,
I think one of the main problems is, and it shows in this article, and this is why I went down that rabbit hole, because so much stuff online is not necessarily true. And that is
Exactly.
something that we all need to remember about
Mhm.
absolutely everything.
You
It's
can't
not
just, yeah.
it's not just family history, it's anything. So, if you're reading an article on something, don't just take it as gospel, because it probably isn't. It's just
especially
somebody.
political news.
Let's go down that
I
one.
I had to just put it in there. I'm sorry, but we'll behave
Well,
now. I'll
then,
behave.
and then, wait, I want to say
Uh-oh.
something. I don't want to get sued or anything, but I want to say something about Wikipedia,
Yes.
who is like this huge source of information that is
Yeah.
all done by
Open
volunteers
source.
Yeah.
uploading things, and they do take all the steps to tell you
Yes.
that this may not be 100% true, but people use it as they would a dictionary, or
Exactly.
and they use it as a source of this is true,
Yes.
and it
and it isn't.
may
Very
not be.
often. Very
I
often
run
it
into
is.
that all the time with dates on national parks, like when they were founded. So
Yes.
like you'll go on the National Park Service website and they have it like, here is this date. And then I've actually talked to the National Park Service employees like rangers, and they'll go, no, this is the date we acknowledge, but this is when the date, because it will go through different names of management. So one time it's a monument, then it's a park, then it's a historic, whatever,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yes.
It's very hard to actually find that train of history. So when you're, putting it out there, so a lot of times I'm just like, I'm not putting anything then,
Yes.
if I don't know, and you'll go, Wikipedia comes up, Google, and everybody's conflicting. And
Yes.
so
But
at that point, I just go, that's
you
it.
could say it was established around.
Yeah,
and then
but we're
put it-
talking about actual like big changes, big,
Yeah.
100 years even. So
but,
that's a mess.
The thing is, I mean, the dates you're talking around is not that long ago, when a lot of these
Right.
parks were actually formed. Is
Yeah.
not that long ago. It's probably in the last 100 years for a lot of them.
Yeah, right. 100 years. That's what I
Right.
was saying. Yeah.
Mhm.
So when you're talking about things like 1620,
Yeah.
there is a lot of conjecture. There are a lot of gaps in the records, yet there are certain things that are put down as if they are facts. So, I mean, very often, I mean, I had a look at Benjamin Franklin, because, he's someone that I've heard of as well. I've
Right.
heard most of them. So I thought, well, I'll look at Benjamin Franklin, and I found that his mother is supposed to come from a family from Norwich, which is my local
Oh,
city. So I
cool.
thought, wow, I must look at him, because I'll find out all about it. And it said in all these different sites that I went on to, I went on a half a dozen different sites to compare, and all of them said the same stuff. Most of them said exactly the same words, so they were obviously just
Copy.
copied and pasted, but none of them gave a source. So I then went to my own indexes and other indexes, family history websites and parish register websites, and you name it, the sort of
The real
stuff
stuff, the real stuff. Yeah.
that I use every day of my life. And I could not find the baptism of Benjamin Franklin's grandfather. Now, all of the websites about Benjamin Franklin told me that he was born in Norwich in 1617, but I
Wow.
can't find it. And there's nobody anywhere who actually tells me where in Norwich he was born. Now, the
Wow.
problem with Norwich is the biggest city in Norfolk. And in the 1620s, Norwich had over 50 churches because it was a
Mm.
really big city, a very important city. So to check all of those churches for the
That's
baptism
wow.
of him without it being on an index would obviously take years. So if it's already been published, how come we don't know what parish he was baptized in?
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
don't believe he was baptized in Norwich. I think it's
Hmm.
much more likely that he came from a village within, or a small town within Norfolk called Diss, which is where there were a lot of Folgers living. And that's also the area where his mother came from.
Mm.
Because again, all of the websites said that
Mm.
Peter Folger was the son of John Folger Jr. and Maria Gibbs. I haven't found their marriage anywhere. I haven't found Peter's baptism anywhere.
Wow.
So
But this is
why?
like, these are the big dudes, the founding fathers people.
I know.
You would think if anyone was going to be documented,
Yeah, but
these
that-
dudes would be
it-
documented.
Actually, not if you think about them sailing off from their mother country and going, I'm going over here and starting a new
Yeah, but
one.
he's looking at their ancestors,
Yeah.
right?
But the most important thing is, in a lot of these websites, they say there was nothing known about him before he arrived in the 1630s.
Mhm.
And yet they then turn around and tell you that he was born in 1617, the son of John and Maria.
How did they know that?
Exactly. So somebody has made something up, and that has then been perpetuated by everybody
Everybody else
copying
copying and pasting.
the
And the
first
more,
one.
so you can't just go by the
Oh my
majority wins
gosh,
because everybody
no.
copies and pastes. So that's
And
out the
now
window.
now they're wondering if he was gay or not. I mean,
Benjamin
years
Franklin,
later, it's
don't,
like,
people get
no,
mad every time I
seriously.
bring that up.
No,
There's-
but it's
there-
true. There's a whole
there's an
batch of
amazing-
people who have decided he was gay. I'm like,
No,
You're-
it's because he's a fancy man. Let's put it this way, but he also
Fancy
was a
man?
mess. He was a fancy man who was also very messy. He drooled on his shirts and everything and spilled his food all the time.
Okay.
I don't know that.
There's this amazing biography written by a historian. Well, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. It was like reading the Bible. And I had this thing about knowing everything about Benjamin Franklin because he actually wrote the first almanac as a joke. Now there's another almanac dude that did the real Farmer's Almanac, but Benjamin Franklin started it as an entertainment piece for people to read during the winter.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of it turned out to be true because he does understand seasons and stuff like that. So people started to believe it, even though he said this is like a rag. It's a joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
Star Magazine or whatever you call those things. You know, do they still even
Okay.
exist? Those weird, the propaganda magazines. He started propaganda, right? And so, but he did it as a joke and he was pretty plain about it. He was going back and forth over to, France. He was the one person who was diplomatic between England, America, and France,
Yes.
Yeah.
which is fancy. But he was, when I say he could go into a party, be able to communicate with other people would just get all pissy, but he was like, no. But he had a lot of girlfriends and a lot of
And
guy friends, but the
boyfriends.
girlfriends because of the girlfriends is what made some people speculate that he was gay because he had a lot of women hanging out. Like if he was taking a bath, like in France, they were all hanging out in there, but it was like their friend, they had a friendship kind of,
While
it wasn't necessarily
taking
that
a
he was being like bad or what, naughty or, wasn't necessarily cheating,
Hello.
Anyway,
You
so
need
I
to
didn't
know
write the
this.
book, and this is about 20 years ago that I read this. So I'm going to be wrong if anything I said. I'm going to get the emails all over again. But I did make one
Benjamin
guy
Franklin
incredibly
invented-
mad on our radio
Yeah.
show, and I was
Now,
in the middle of reading
Benjamin
this.
Franklin invented the bubble bath.
No, he didn't, but he did like to take baths. But he had all these girlfriends, so people thought he was being, a naughty boy. But then they realized, no, he had a lot of women friends and he really didn't care about the sexual part of that. it was women friends and they was a friendship. Anyway, so hey, we're still in Pride Month. I can say this. Say this and celebrate this. So I'm going to get in trouble about Benjamin Franklin, but there is that speculation, and you brought it up. But I do want to go to this that you brought it up, Nancy. You started it. You
Of course,
pushed
that's not
the
my
button.
fault.
No, it's not my fault.
always
It's just
Nancy.
what
Oh,
people.
I don't
did.
know. Don't blame me on it. But I power to him, man. Come on. I mean, we have a lot of gay people
To me,
for
it doesn't make a
centuries.
difference,
Come on.
but it is interesting that years later, when the guy has been dead for like 100 years, somebody decides he was gay. How do you know that?
Over 200-300 years,
Yeah,
a long time.
exactly. So how do they
Why
now
would people
decide?
care? Who cares?
Why would they even decide that now he's gay?
Because
Because of that it's a speculation.
You know,
But
I
if he
mean, they're
was
gonna
like
dig
power,
up his body and test his DNA. I don't know.
no,
this is
but power
crazy.
to him. Power to him, man.
But
I don't.
exactly, and
Why would
maybe
people get
that's what
mad?
made him such a good negotiator.
Exactly, that's my point. He was, I say, a fancy man in that he knew how to go into a party, be party time, and then knew when to do business, but knew how to be with all genders in different ways. Let's just put it that way.
and
He was a
also
talented bloke.
He was
he traveled, so, as you've just said, he traveled. And
all over.
Yeah.
one of the interesting things that I did discover was that there is actually a big archive with all of this stuff in, and there are a load of letters between him and his relations who were still living in Norfolk. And
Wow.
that does seem that there is obviously this connection with
Yeah.
Norfolk and the
Yeah.
Folger family. But again, there doesn't appear to be the records of the baptisms,
Wow.
marriages, etc., to go with it. But there is one really interesting thing, which was a will of Maria Gibbs's father, who mentioned that she was married to a Folger. So, it could all be tied together. But the trouble is, what I'm saying is that a lot of these written records that you're finding on the websites are not actually giving you facts. They're just giving you suppositions, or they're just giving you a carbon copy of what they read 10 years ago, 20 years ago, what might have been published in a record 50 years ago, 100 years ago. And they've just quoted that verbatim, whatever you want to call it, and taken that as a true record. So bring that up to date and bring it onto your own family history. This is the big thing that a lot of people have got to remember, is that you can't trust what you read on the internet. So
this is important. So you want to get the fact, you want to be able to get the actual historic document itself.
Exactly. You can't judge, you can't put together your family history on the say-so of somebody else. Unless they have given you the sources of their information. So say, for instance, I look at a website and it's got part of my family tree on it. A lot of people just copy and paste that onto their family tree. Well, that's no good.
Wow.
Because half of that could be rubbish. But a lot of people do that. And very often I will see people with a family tree on a website, and for the source for the information, it will say, such a family history website, which that's not a source. A source is a parish register. Yeah, parish register, a census, a will, they're sources.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
So
because
you want the
talk about
document.
Using
first-
another record that's been written by somebody else as a source is a third hand.
If you can see the actual document online, that's okay. Like the actual photocopy of the document. But if it's someone who has typed it out and said, it's happened here and they're wrong. They're wrong. It's like
But then
one typo
aren't you
could
now
start a war.
talking it? But then now aren't you talking about newspapers? Like, because that's a printed thing or an
Yes,
online thing.
a
Yeah, is
newspaper
that a source?
is a primary
People
source.
take, yeah,
But
people,
when
yeah.
you read a newspaper, you've got to realize that it was written by somebody for a purpose.
So going back to
Exactly.
Benjamin Franklin and the Almanac, if he wrote something funny about your grandpa, don't read it
You're-
and think it's
you're-
true.
No,
Oh, I want,
I'm betting your grandpa was funny then.
yeah, I want to say this though. This is very important, Glynn. As you take a cup of, are you drinking tea or coffee? Because this
I'm
is
drinking
important.
coffee.
Perfect.
Ooh.
Because this is where I'm going. In this country, there's a commercial. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Oh,
Coffee.
yeah, you didn't just
Folgers
do that.
coffee is one of the biggest coffee, typical,
Mm,
coffee brands in this country is Folgers,
Yeah.
Folger.
Well, there
Folgers.
you go. It would be
So
interesting to see whether they're the same family.
when I saw your article, I went, oh my gosh, it's the coffee. That's why I was asking, what's in your cup? Now we don't have coffee in ours, but I mean, that's coffee is, so that is I'm going to have to now look up the Folgers coffee thing.
Yeah.
Because you got to think too about when America became like December 6th, I think is when the Tea Party happened, the Boston Tea Party, when they threw the tea over and back, then it was
Not
those
coffee.
big giant
They were
bricks.
drinking
No,
coffee as they
because-
threw the tea over.
Yeah, but we were saying no to the British, right? Even though we're British descent that we're doing this,
Mhm.
dressed up as Native Americans and went off the ship and tossed the tea. I mean, that's
So
crazy. And then
funny.
later we had another tea party, but we won't go there. But that that Boston tea thing was like, and so I wonder about Folgers. I have to look now, it's another borough to go down
Yes.
because it's interesting because Folgers is a national brand of coffee. Like if
Yeah.
you go to New Orleans or Louisiana, it's community coffee. But that is a national brand that has been there. Like Maxwell House and Folgers are going to be the two big national coffee brands. Now we
Yeah.
have Starbucks and all that fancy stuff, but that started later.
That's
I'm talking
just
about-
somebody serving coffee.
Oh,
They're not making it.
I'm going to have to go look up
processing it,
this
growing
Folgers
it.
thing because I wonder if it even dates back to America going, okay, we got Benjamin Franklin and on this side, and it could be a family member. And here we go. We get rid of tea. Well, we better do something. We need coffee or something, right? Even though black tea has more caffeine.
Well, the other interesting thing with that would be that he would be in the right sort of position and in the right circles to
Mm.
encourage people to use that brand of coffee, possibly.
And
If that's
he
the
went
case.
to Europe all the time, which Europe was big on coffee.
We
France
were,
was big on
we were
coffee.
we were bringing coffee houses in for people
Mm.
to drink in, as opposed to tea houses. But coffee shops were getting the big thing in London in the 18th century.
Oh,
So,
wow. So
yeah.
that was that time frame.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, would the tea thing come from England going in and dominating like the East and Asia? That's where the
Yeah.
tea thing came from, England.
Yes, China,
Okay.
China and India were the big
Okay.
tea producers, and obviously India was part of the English
Empire.
Empire,
Mm.
The Empire
so
strikes back.
it did, yes.
Yes, it did. But wow, but but look how that's a rabbit hole, right? About coffee. But-
This is the whole point. Whenever you start to do a family history, a local history, or whatever you do, whenever you start researching a subject, if you're anything like me, if you are actually interested in the subject that you're researching, you will go off at tangents at every single
You can't help it.
time. No,
But then
because
okay, so
you
now
wanna
what also
find
can
out
happen
more.
because we're humans?
Yeah.
We want to find out more, but now deep down that I really want the Folgers to be connected to Benjamin Franklin. And
Yeah.
so when you see something that looks like it, our psyche will start to believe it just because you want it to, even if it's not. So does that
Well,
happen on
It's
family
very,
history where
it's very
want the story-
possible.
yeah, but it's
Well-
possible, but even if it points to it and it may not be true, there's that side of us that goes, we want it to be true. I don't want, I want to
Yes.
stop here and let it be true.
Yes, there is that way of thinking, but as a researcher, I might think that, but I then want to prove it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I wanted to think that Benjamin Franklin's grandfather came from Norwich. I
I
wanted
remember
to
your
think,
email immediately go,
Mm,
oh my gosh, I think he's here. It
yes,
came from here. And
but
I'm like, no way, Nancy. And now,
I'm not
then
going
next
to
thing I know,
accept it. I'm not
now
just going to accept it because that's what it says on a
that
website.
sucks. That sucks.
Yeah, you got to
Because you
go
were so
there.
excited.
Yeah.
And then you sent me this, oh, I think, because we changed the whole thing of
Mm.
what we were going to do this month. And you're like, oh, I went and looked up and immediately found this, but let me go and see. You always have that,
Exactly.
let me go find out more. But I'm like,
Well,
dude,
yeah.
so what? But look what I did. I go, Nancy, Glynn thinks, hey, Benjamin Franklin's
Mm.
family comes from his village. See, I didn't go let him see more, but you see how it starts to,
Yes.
the
Mm.
phone tree thing. You know how we did the phone thing in school, how you say one thing, it goes down, and by the time
Yeah.
it comes back to you,
Yeah.
it's completely opposite. I mean, that is a good
But-
example just between the three of us.
But
Wow.
actually, the best thing is that I've found a connection, possibly, to a tiny little village in Norfolk, just outside Thetford, where Benjamin
Oh.
Franklin's relations appear to have lived, because that's the family who he was
Oh.
corresponding with in the 1760s. So he was corresponding with this family called Folger in this little tiny village in Norfolk
Mm.
in the 1760s. That there must have been a reason for that. I know it's over 100 years after his family went
Mm.
over, but
Do we know his mother's maiden name?
yeah, she was a Folger. So what I'm
Okay.
saying
That
is
kind of explains that.
this is much more, for me, this is actually much more exciting than Peter Folger coming from Norwich. Because if he came from a little tiny village where there was probably only half a dozen other people living, that is more exciting for that little tiny village than
Mm.
the fact that Benjamin Franklin's ancestors came from Norwich.
Okay. But wait about this. Okay, I have records. So remember, just dawned on me like DTD, remember our pet sit that we did in Connecticut with our friends, Chris and Angela? Remember we did the whiskey tasting with them, Nancy,
Mhm.
and oh my
Mhm.
God. And
Oh,
I
yeah,
love
yeah.
Bella. Oh my God. And the
Mhm.
dogs. I
Mhm.
love, oh my gosh. Anyway, they're the house with this, remember I took photos of the records
Mhm.
for
The
you.
1700s.
I'll need to send it to you. I don't think I ever
thing.
did get to it. So that house is from the 1700s and is Benjamin Franklin's niece's house. They have records and family records, and I photographed them all. So maybe that will help something. I don't know. Because
What are you waiting for?
Yeah.
well, I didn't know that
Get
your
on
rabbit
in,
hole went
Lisa.
the other way. I mean,
Get
we just
on
started
in,
recording
Lisa.
today. I got your
Come on.
article, then I'm
Why
like,
you
oh, well, duh.
Why are you
Well,
sitting
the
on
thing
it?
is, you see,
Come
the thing is, if we can actually prove where Benjamin Franklin's family came from, we're going to turn the history books upside down.
Okay, so
think.
now, and think about this. Look at all the Abraham Lincoln history that you had too.
Yeah,
That was
exactly.
some crazy stuff, right? That's just
Yeah,
he's just
wow.
down the street. I just joined the Lincoln Facebook group, Lincoln Highway Facebook group.
Oh,
It's
right, yeah.
crazy. Well, we're into the Jefferson Highway, Thomas Jefferson. Speak of that,
Right.
do that
But
podcast.
he
They just had
didn't
their
know.
annual conference, and they met at the crossroads in Iowa of the Jefferson Highway and the Lincoln Highway. So they had people dressed up as each president meet, and then the presidents of the Highway Association met and shook hands all in one place. I think that's pretty darn cool. I mean, when you think about it, back then we were naming roads after presidents. Now people are pissy about Jefferson and a little bit on, but you can't, history is like that. So,
Get over it.
but, well, he did bet. No, he did bet. I'm not getting into it because some of it's not good. So Andrew Jackson was not a good guy, but then if we didn't have Andrew Jackson, I don't think we would have won the Battle of New Orleans. So just saying. So it's kind of these mixed things that you just have to go, that's That's what happened.
It's history.
But it's history, but I don't want to hurt people's families that had suffered deaths and consequences over people doing some bad decisions. So, God, you have to, I'm trying to, I care about people. I don't want, it's such a hard time. Now I don't believe in slavery or any of the brutal things with slavery. And I wish we could take it all back, but we could just do
can't.
better now. I
No,
think we
it's
have to
too
just do
late.
better now. You know what I mean? And learn from history. That's why history is here, and we need to, get part of it and go, okay, Thomas Jefferson sucked at this, but he was really cool at that. Let's do what he was cool at and not what he sucked at. Like, that's how I look at it. Pretty straightforward.
Well,
Don't do
the problem with historical research is that I find stuff that isn't very nice.
Yeah.
But I can't do anything about it. All I can do is report on the facts. And the problem with going down the rabbit hole of what people did wrong means that do we cover up history? We can't cover up history because
No,
it's all clear.
and that's how we learn not to do the same thing
Exactly.
twice.
And the problem is when we cover up history, we're then not acknowledging that anything happened. So therefore, we're then leaving ourselves open to let it happen again. I mean, it's
Exactly.
like, it was the same thing as what happened during World War II with the concentration camps, because there is I don't know what you'd like to call it, a group of people who say that the Holocaust never happened because they don't want it to have happened. Well, actually, it's very important that we learn that it did happen. We can't condone any of it. We don't want to condone any of it, but we want to acknowledge what happened so we cannot do it.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that is the important thing. And
Because
all of these, what we've got to remember is that what these people were doing, we're talking about 1630, 1640, even right up to the 1776 signing the Declaration. Things were going on in 1776, and they would have thought things that went on in 1630 were awful. Things that were going on in 1776, today we think they're awful. Things happened in 1966 that I think were awful.
Right.
We have to think about these things.
Well, and it's on us as people, humankind.
Exactly.
To learn from it and try to, we're called human, not animals, and we separate ourselves from dogs and cats and leopards and lions, but we're not that far separated as far as how we act.
Oh, we're really going to get emails today.
I know. Sorry, but I mean, what do you call war? Well, let's go kill each other.
But I think the important thing is that we report history as it happened.
Exactly.
And although I realize that what happened is not pleasant to some groups of people, it's not pleasant to my own ancestors, but as I'm reporting history, I have to report history on what actually happened. I have to report the truth, because if I don't, all I'm doing is keeping the rubbish perpetuated, and actually that's no good to anybody. So it's the same thing as these idiots who copy and paste one website and put into another one. All they're doing is perpetuating a load of rubbish. And the trouble is, if you perpetuate rubbish, in the end of the day, people are going to think the stuff that you're putting forward is what happened. Well, it isn't. We need to know what did happen. And I think that is the important thing that I've discovered from looking at that particular group of people, is that what has been perpetuated isn't necessarily the truth. So we need to dig.
Yeah.
You really have to research at least, I really believe in 6 to 7 sources.
Yeah.
3 is good, but and there's some places like Wikipedia take it with a grain of salt. It to me is a starting place.
Yes,
Give you ideas.
yes.
End of
But
story.
but it is all
That's
about
it.
amassing as much
Mhm.
original or contemporary reports as there was available. You know,
And they do give you a
sometimes
list
there
of the
aren't any.
people who have contributed. And if you want to, you can go look up all those people who have contributed to a basic article on their website. So
Mm.
they're not doing anything wrong. They're
No,
printing.
they're not necessarily trying to fool anybody,
Yeah.
but they're not actually giving their sources. And that
Yeah.
is the important thing.
Well, they do list at the bottom of the article. Normally, there's a list of people who have contributed, but then you got to
Yeah.
go look up 16 people and then
Yes,
find
they
out.
give
Oh,
you a list. Very often
yes.
they will give you a list of sources, and a lot of them sources are just other books.
I know. And then when you go and look at them, you find, oh, there's 3 words that match.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the copy and paste on the internet. That's the thing, you know?
Yeah,
But I don't want people to, I want people to push through. Like, don't let it
Don't let it stop.
slow
Yeah.
you down on your
No.
research. I
no,
think, you know, you're letting people know that allows them to, like what you said, you found this whole other thing. And then maybe now,
exactly.
maybe I'm sitting on records that could help.
And
Duh.
that is the amazing thing, that I mean, the possibility is there that
I know.
between your record and my records, we could actually rewrite the history of his family tree.
I tried to read those records. I have it's like reading a whole other language.
Well, you
I
need
have
to
no
send them
clue
to
what they're
me.
talking about.
Send them.
I have
Send
no
I
them.
clue. I will.
I
I
shall
will.
sit up all night waiting for them to ping through onto my email.
But yeah, Bing.
Mm,
Yes,
ping.
I'll Dropbox them, you know, because I photographed them all and I'm looking at this going, you know, and now I'm going, I should probably have photographed the entire book of everything in there, because who knows? Because there's so much. I don't know what I'm looking at. It looks, I mean, it's more than birth certificates. It's like the things of people coming over with I look at Glynn's face. He's looking at me like, I don't know. There's like all these names. I don't know what I'm looking at. I can't read it. It's in all this handwriting stuff that I can't read.
Yeah.
You want those documents?
Yes, please.
There's your answer.
Well, you know,
Oh.
when we said Benjamin Franklin, I should have gone like, hello. Yeah, Chris and Angela are gonna get on me, you know. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll have to do a call with them. We'll have to do the next podcast with them coming on and talking about their house because of the Benjamin Franklin connection.
Well, exactly.
If we
Especially
do
if
a
I can
rabbit,
find a connection to Norfolk, that'll be even better.
I think, but it's interesting about Thetford because even when we were there in Connecticut, where their place is, all the names, there was Scotland, there were all these names that were all English. And obviously there's
Okay.
Norfolk and Sussex and Essex and
Yeah.
but every state seems to have a Sussex and an Essex here. You know,
Well,
it's like
would.
when you back east.
Not
So
being
it's
funny, if you look at it, they were saying, I was reading on one of the websites I was looking at, that they were saying that more people emigrated from the east coast of England to America than people realize. And when you look at all of the place names in America, the east coast of England is so well represented in place names. And also,
absolutely.
we were looking at the other people as well. I don't want to forget about the other ones.
yeah, because you had some good ones there too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Benjamin Franklin's paternal father came from Northamptonshire, which is not too far away from the East Coast. It's on the east of the middle. John Adams' family, when he settled in America, they called the place that they settled in Braintree in Massachusetts. And there is a Braintree.
Where does that name come from? No,
Braintree in
like,
Essex.
come on, where? But that name, I want to know who came up with the name Braintree. I mean, that's like your brain. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, but there's a place in Essex called Braintree. So, you know, you'd need to look at the origins of the English name called Braintree. So
normally they would go new Braintree knew this, like the settlers came over
Yeah,
here and they
sometimes,
named everything,
Braintree,
copied
like
from where they
when,
left, and they were like New England, knew this, knew
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you
but it's
see,
the same thing. That
some
reminded
of the
them of
others,
home.
Robert Livingston is Scottish,
Right.
definitely. But Roger Sherman, he also came from Essex. In fact,
Mm.
his origins were in East Bergholt and Dedham, which is an absolutely beautiful area of Essex. And that's where John Constable painted a lot of his
Oh,
country
cool.
scenes. So
Yeah.
that's a beautiful area. And then Thomas Jefferson, his family is not really very well known. His mother's family is, but the Jeffersons, they don't know really where he came from. They've been doing some DNA research about Thomas Jefferson.
Oh,
But there isn't really anything set in concrete as to where his ancestors came from. They think he might have come from Wales, but they're not certain. So,
no.
there's still a lot to be discovered. But the
Wow.
interesting thing, of these 5 people, you had 1, 2, 3 of them who came from East Anglia, my side
Your
of the
area.
country.
Wow, Glenn. And you might be related. You never know.
Who knows? Who knows?
Well, and the other
Wow.
thing too, what about paintings? Like I have this painting behind me with
Yes.
when they're signing the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
Can you use artwork? Because like here, like I go back to the national parks. And certainly even the Civil War, there were artists. We've done a lot of shows with Victoria Chick about this, where artists, photography, obviously not then, but
Mhm.
artists were doing sketches and paintings, or sketches and then painting later. They documented like our civil wars and things. So
Yes.
back then, can we use art as part of research to help us, know this was true because maybe an artist painted it? Because back then, a lot of times it was painting the scenes. It was almost like a newspaper in a way, the way artists were, right? Compared to now we're like doing artistic forms.
Pre-photograph.
Yeah, it was pre-photo. It was more of documenting at some of it.
The-
It
the-
wasn't like I'm painting to get famous. It was I am
Right.
depicting what I'm seeing.
Yes, but you've always got to remember the same with anything that's written down. Why was it written down? Who was it written down for, and who paid for it? So
Right.
when you've got a painting, who painted it? Why did he paint it? And who paid him to paint it? Because if I pay you to paint my picture, I'm
Oh,
going to want you to show me in my best light. And I
Mhm.
don't want you to show me as a nasty person. And that is why Cromwell, the old saying, he wanted to be painted warts and all, which is all
Ah.
about, he wanted to show what he really looked like. So it's all about warts and all, so you wanted a picture showing him as he actually really was. We still don't know if that's how he was because no one's got a photograph of him. But even a photograph can lie. So you can't always take anything as pure gospel. But that's what Nancy's already said. You
Mm.
need more than one source. So
Yeah.
for instance, your painting behind you shows
Mm.
the signing of the Declaration of Independence or whatever.
Mhm.
There will be a record of who was in that room at that time,
Mm.
and possibly where they sat or where they stood. Now that painting may give you the proper picture, but I doubt it because it is looking into a room as if the wall this side doesn't exist and all of the people are sitting so you can see their faces. Well, that's
And
not how people sit.
and then when the artist paints, they have first and foremost the
artistic
make-
license.
the art. No, they have absolutely, but they also want to. They have rules of the foundation of the painting, the structure of the painting,
Yes.
the composition of the painting, all these things.
Yeah, exactly.
The lighting source can't come from more than one place unless you really know how to paint. And
Yeah.
all these things, and they are depicting a scene. They are not a photograph.
No.
The purpose of the painting
Unless
is
you're a
not the
courtroom
same
artist.
as a photograph. Purpose of the painting has artistic license. to
But like
do
I say, that the
what?
picture behind you
Mm,
would not be how people would sit in a room.
yeah,
No, and it's
exactly.
also a bunch of politicians, so you know half of them are asleep and drooling.
And then if I painted this picture, I would probably take a couple of the white wigs and turn them black.
I know.
Just for
Listen,
fun.
oh,
No,
where did the wigs
seriously.
come from? We were talking about this on our Pride Month show, and we were
The-
talking about
the
drag,
white
and
powdered wigs.
Johnny Schaefer says, listen,
did that
drag's been going around for a long time. We had wigs in England, and I'm like, we had wigs in Africa, like because we had the British system, right?
Oh
Yeah.
Who
gosh, when I
started the
went, I went,
wigs? Because
when I went
Yeah.
to court in Kenya, and I was so surprised that was in
there were
there.
wigs. There were
Every-
wigs. Everyone was wearing
Yeah,
wigs.
and they came out with the white powdered
And
wigs. I got
white
the
powdered
chills 'cause
wigs,
I'm like,
but for the African men, because it was always men, they would have an English person's white haired wig. So it wasn't matching their ethnicity. So that's not cool. So but that's what they did
but the
anyway.
thing
So it's like,
is, you know,
oh,
when they say powdered, there's a reason, because as they walk, powder falls
Yes.
on the floor. You can see it. And I
What-
was like,
what's
oh
the
my,
point? Why do we have wigs? Who started
don't
this and
know.
why?
That's
Maybe
another
not-
subject.
Oh,
maybe
okay, that's a
not
whole
to
other
be,
show.
oh no, maybe not to be identified as how you voted or something.
Oh, because that goes into a whole other political party, the Whigs
But that's an
and the
H. It's
Tories.
got an H in it.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a different
Yeah,
kind of
but I
wig.
mean, Whigs and even how did those
Yeah,
words
it's a
come?
different kind
All
of
right,
wig.
that's a whole other topic, but all right. Well, everyone, Glynn's articles up on blendradioandtv.com. All the links are in the show notes, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you're listening or watching. And feel free to send those emails. I know
Yeah,
we'll
please
get
do.
them. I mean, we go ahead. No, we like to connect. You know, we're not here to harm anybody. That's the truth. It is it's always just difficult to navigate some of these conversations, and that's the truth. So everyone,
mysteries-
norfolk-tours.co.uk is Glynn's website. That's important that people connect with you. And so when someone is help, like if they need help in this country, going, I might be a Folger,
Yeah,
so then they can connect with you for that and help with, even if they're not coming over yet, or
of course.
do you help people?
I mean,
Okay.
that's
Glynn
half,
is a Burrows. That's his last name.
that's half the fun of it is to have people who are interested in their family history, because
Mhm.
Folger is actually quite a Norfolk name. But also, you see, you've got Folger, which is Foulger. You've got Folger, Folger, but you've also got Fulshire, which is Fulcher. So all of those names could easily be the same family.
Oh,
It's
they
just
could.
like I see who wrote them down. But yeah, I mean, if anybody has got any queries about family history, just drop me an email. That's what we're here for.
Find
to
him on
help.
Facebook. He's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I love your Facebook. You've been doing nice stories, little videos of places.
I'm
I like
trying.
watching it.
I'm trying. I'm learning.
It's nice. It's very nice. I like to watch it. I like to see where you are. It's beautiful. It looks like you're having a lovely summer in
Oh, it's
England.
beautiful out there. Yeah, it's very, very warm.
Very
Wow,
cool.
how different.
Well, it's summer. Well, it's hot in Texas where we're recording this. Let me
All
just
right.
tell you, it's hot in Texas. But anyway, thank you so much. Glynn is here every fourth Saturday. You can listen to him on our shows or watch him at bigblendradio.com every fourth Saturday or anytime later. And of course, norfolk-tours.co.uk. Thank you so much, Glynn.
See you
Thanks,
later, girls.
Glenn.
Let's go have some coffee.
Yeah, why not?